of the teachings of Bible. And the most important thing that appealed to me was their approach of love to all problems of life and treating the oneness of humanity as a basic aspect of the Christian religion. When I was in Madras, I was mostly in Madras till 1956. Mine is a peculiar case of my being a worker of Baba several years before I actually saw him personally. It's a very rare case. Most people saw Baba and became his devotees or began his workers. But I was one of those who became his worker many years before I met him personally. And I was devoted to his work, and he had given me instructions all by post, though he had not seen me and I had not seen him. But later on, I came to realize in 1941, when I found the meeting of Upasani Baba with Meher Baba in the Meher Baba journal, that I had met Baba in Meher Baba in 1935 at Nasik without knowing that he was Meher Baba. I had gone to him just for curiosity. A Tanga man told me there is one silent Baba here, and I stopped the Tanga and went in. He was there alone, and he gave me a large glass of hot milk with sugar. I drank it and bade goodbye to him. I didn't know it was Meher Baba. But the next day, when I met Upasani Maharaj, he asked me, did you get milk? That too I did not pay much importance and did not realize. But when I saw the photographs and the incidents with Meher Baba and Upasani Maharaj, then I realized that I had met Baba and he had already contacted me. Though I was in the illusion till that day that I had not met Baba. But from 1935, other persons in Madras know of Baba. Even a Russian saint, Sadhu Sri Leek, I had met him. He had told about Baba. He came to Madras at several meetings. There was one Mr. Sampath Iyengar, who was a judge, one Vadivelu, who was in corporation. All these persons had correspondence with Baba, and they had invited Baba to Madras in 1931 and 35. Though I had the literature, it did not occur to me to go and meet him. Later on, Sampath Iyengar and Vadivelu became old and passed away. The work of carrying on Meher Baba fell on me, and I took it with great pleasure because I had the training under Upasani Maharaj for some time. I used to go to him often, and also working for Sai Baba of Shirdi, publishing literature and all that.
Did you see Sai Baba?
No, he passed away in 1918 or so, but I have met Meher Baba, Upasani Maharaj several times. He also did not tell me about Meher Baba. The only question he asked me once was, did you get milk? This I realized 6 years later. So I began to work for Baba, and in 1947, when Baba came to Madras, So I began to work for Baba, and in 1947, when Baba came to Madras, I was really working, and he had to send for me after nearly 6 or 7 hours at the meeting in Madras, and inquired about me where I was, because I was busy arranging for the meeting and things of that kind. But before that, I was obeying Baba's circulars, Baba's instructions for nearly 6 or 7 years. In fact, I have given many writings to Baba, pledging my faith and sacrificing my all to him, without seeing him and without his seeing me. That is a peculiar case. So I attribute mine to be a case where Baba had already picked me up without my going to him. It's one of those rare cases. At that time, I had my own problems and difficulties in life. I didn't ask him for any relief. Of course, inwardly I was feeling he might give me relief, but he never promised any of that kind. His only advice was, you will help me a great deal if you avoid lust and greed. These are the 2 words he said. If you avoid lust and greed, you will be a great help to me. I did not realize at that time what he meant, because at that moment there was no idea of lust in me, nor was any greed. But some years later, I was so involved in some affairs of lust and also in some transactions where I appeared to have been greedy. Perhaps I was greedy, and I got into trouble. And of course, I remembered it, and I underwent several difficulties in my life, but he never sort of extricated me from those difficulties, but he always said, face your difficulties as a normal man. He gave me the courage to endure those difficulties and to not mind them at all, because they were very passing, and that's a part of the game of life. This is the greatest blessing I've had from him. Not to ask him for any favors, but to face whatever comes with a courage, thinking it's one of the phases of life. He never gave me any success in the difficulties which I wanted. But at one stage he said, you will have no more difficulties. That was somewhere in 1954 or 55. Of course, I was continuing to be a worker. I was one of the center leaders and all that, writing articles on Baba, spending my own money without collecting any funds. I never collected funds, because once you collect funds, you have to account for it. And you have no liberty to spend without the consent of those who gave it. So I always spent my own money, and sometimes exceeded my even means. But Baba never wanted it. He always said, keep your limits. But Baba never wanted it. He always said, keep your limits. But I, in my enthusiasm and zeal, exceeded the limits. And if I got into financial difficulties, I never blamed him, I blamed myself. I've been a worker of his, helping Adi and writing. And whenever I used to attend meetings, I used to give write-ups and send to the magazines and make my own record. Nothing special, he just blessed me. He would always say that I should keep within my limits and not spend more than I could afford. He would always say that I should attend to my duties and not neglect them. He would always say he was happy. He would always say I should not spend more than I could afford. But in 1956 came a change in his dealing with me. In 1956 I came to Calcutta for a short stay of 3 weeks. It so happened that even that short stay came abruptly, and Baba met with the accident on 2nd December 1956, the day of my arrival in Calcutta, and he had a lot of fractures. Then he needed the help of treatment of one Mr. Alexander, who is an Armenian and was the only foreign qualified chiropractor in Calcutta, in India. He was in Calcutta. Baba sent for me and asked me to consult him about treating, and he sent, give me x-rays and all that. And I had traveled trips from Meherabad to Calcutta, and he asked me to fix up a house for him for a short stay, for a 6-month stay and all that. Shall I repeat what I said? I never attached importance to bliss or personal advancement, and I think Baba knew it. I've always been trained by him to do selfless service without any motive, and to pocket coolly any criticism and condemnation in my work. I never had a thick skin for all this. I never minded it and went on cheerfully. Even now I do so. There are always criticisms and backbitings and in such public work, and we have to face it. That's the game of public work and public service. In spiritual work, it is all the similar, so. I wanted to go back to my place because I had come to Calcutta only for a short stay, and my work was finished, and my family is still in Madras. Baba said, you stay in Calcutta till I tell you, and try to earn a living there. This I am doing. He left this body without telling me when to leave Calcutta. So it so happens that I am continuing in Calcutta from 1956 up till now, and I shall do so to the rest of my day. In 1951 in Hyderabad, nearly 75 persons had assembled, and I was the only man from South India and one from Andhra. And he had asked some persons to help him to come forward to be to work for him in his new life. And I was one of those who stood up. Among 10 years, 21 stood up. He began rejecting almost all of them. And when it came to my turn, he said, "You have got a lot of responsibilities. You are no good." You carry on in the way you have been doing for me. He always said, he gave a packet of some fruits and some cakes. He said, "Don't spill anything on the floor or give it to others, you must eat it yourself." So happened we were full, and I was always afraid of disobeying him, rather. I would say I always obeyed him, sometimes with a certain amount of fear as to what might happen if I disobeyed. So I remember having gulped a rotten plantain. It was rotten for nearly 6 days, with the skin, beating it bit by bit and swallowing it as like medicine with a glass of water. That incident I always remember.
That come to Baba's attention?
He did. He laughed. He laughed, but he appreciated that I was obedient. And he then, there was a discourse on love and obedience. It was then at that discourse Baba said, "Love is my gift to you, obedience is your offering to me." These are the words I remember. There's a discourse on that, it's printed somewhere, but I was at that discourse. When I was in Madras, before I had met Baba, 2 of his devotees had come to stay with me. Both of them were Hindus. So happened they were always addicted to tea till midnight. And one of them was rather orthodox. In the place I was sitting, it was a Muslim shop who was able to give good tea till midnight. And I used to give good tea to him and all that, to one of the devotees. It so happened that the other friend of his realized it came from a Muslim. Then he began to dislike it. And I brought some chapatis, he said it was Muslim and I won't touch it. Then the other man said, "I too won't touch it." And we both went together and threw it in the sea. And this incident, I casually narrated to Adi, because these people had been sent to train to prepare the ground for Baba's visit. When Adi reported this to Baba, Baba got furious. And in fact, he punished the man and asked him not to face him for nearly 6 months. That I felt regretted. Why I carried this incident. I never realized that this news would be conveyed to Baba, or that Baba would take so serious notice of it, because I had not met Baba and had not known his ways at that time. I later on found that every little thing was conveyed to Baba and every little thing was done on his instructions, which I didn't know at that time. Had I known it, I would have been more tactful in not mentioning it to anybody. I had some weaknesses which I didn't realize. Later on I realized I had these weaknesses of lust and greed. I used to always ask for more money than what I deserved. And Baba brought out these weaknesses. There's another weakness in me to these weaknesses. There's another weakness in me to think a little too much of myself, that I was doing this and I was responsible for that. Baba always curbed the ego by putting me to humiliation or by making my work very little in the eyes of others. So these, immediately I thought I was doing it. There was also a snub and there was some obstruction.
Give an incident about that.
For example, when I printed The Highest to the High, or Existence and Substance. See, Baba wanted me to print them in Madras. At that time there was no printed literature. Then I thought I had done it well and given it to the proof. Baba had sent telegrams. You must go through the proof yourself. 2 telegrams. I didn't know why he should say that, because it goes without saying that I am supposed to see the proof. Then I discovered that some important words were not corrected, even by the best of the printers, and I then realized that Baba knew. There's another incident. I was asked to translate in Tamil language the Existence and Substance. And he said, you must do it yourself, because my knowledge of Tamil was very poor. So I took hold of 7 persons, eminent persons. One of them was a government translator, another, to give 7 translations. And then Baba wrote to me you must do the translation yourself. Then I had to sit down, cull out each sentence, pick out the best translation and use it, and use my own translation. Then Baba said, I am happy at what you have done. But remember, my knowledge of Tamil is very poor, though my mother tongue is Tamil. When he gestured about me, he always say this one. There is a red line on my face, he used to indicate, and people knew it was Chari. Because nobody in Baba's fold had that, always. Baba once passed through Madras and said nobody should see him. But I didn't take it seriously. I just wanted to have a glimpse of him, at least have a darshan from a distance, and went to the station. Baba noticed me from a distance and then said, blessed me with his hand and said, you go away. And I came away. I always told him that I was unable to concentrate for more than my mind wandered. Then he said, that won't suit your temperament. You follow this, and he showed me. He asked Aris to bring a book and asked me to read a particular portion of the article on meditation in discourses. There, that was that I should devote my attention on a subject by reading or discussing about it. That is itself meditation. In 1947, he wanted a bus to be arranged at 5 o'clock in the morning. Something happened, either there was a change of stepney or something was, the engine gave trouble and all that. We were 10 minutes late, and Baba was walked off. Of course, he didn't show his anger, but he walked off. And other people had to take the luggages and run after him, and other people had to take the luggages and run after him and catch him and apologize to him and all that. When Baba called me to arrange a chiropractor and a house in Calcutta for treatment, he always saw that I was paid all my expenses of journey and other things, and the fees to the doctor and all those things, and wanted me to travel comfortably and not to put myself discomfort, and not to come if I cannot afford time. But in those days I could afford time. Though I didn't ask for any mantra or initiation, others were asking, and he used to give a reply. There's no initiation, no guru. I always felt that a guru means one who teaches. An incident can teach, a man can teach, even a servant can teach, a wife can teach, a teacher can teach, so many things. An experience can teach so many things, and they will bring out your weaknesses and where you are wrong and all that. These can teach. As for initiation and all that, this I always felt asking for a mantra is rather selfish, because you are looking only for your own advancement and you don't care for the others. Your purpose in life should be devoted to the service of others without expecting any sort of return or thanks. This is always the ideal which I always cherish, and Baba encouraged that ideal. Don't touch my feet, you always, don't touch my feet. But he would always embrace, and he would always, in this fashion. Baba said, never touch my feet, never, except once. I think once it was, I don't know when it was. He covered his feet and then he allowed others to touch. There was only once. There was some purpose at that time. I don't know what face it was. He never allowed. Baba was very prompt in his correspondence and replies. He would never hesitate to send telegrams. I think he has spent more on telegrams than on letters.